When I applied to law school, I was scared. How were people going to interact with me when I came out on my application? When you're looking at a male or female box and that doesn't encompass your identity, it's tough. I personally made the decision that, most students have to make, which is in choosing one. It's just that most students don't have to think about it. It's automatic, and for trans students, that's a big choice. I said in my personal statement, I'm going to be someone with a gender that you won't recognize. I'm gonna confuse people. That's part of what I'm gonna bring to law school. And to be honest, if you don't want me there, I don't wanna be there.
When I was deciding what to put into my personal statement, I knew that I needed to include something that would distinguish me. And I had to think whether or not I wanted to disclose that I was a transsexual woman. And I realized that I would be better off rolling the dice and including that information, because anywhere I was accepted, I knew that it was going to be someplace that was going to be supportive of me, because they knew something that I thought was the most vulnerable characteristic of who I was.
I haven't run into many transgendered applicants to law school, but the truth is that they're out there, and if they're applying to law school, they should, in my opinion, feel very comfortable identifying themselves, letting a prospective admissions officer know what their concerns are, talk with current students in the law school, and get a sense of what the environment's going to be like, and make sure that that school can meet the needs that they have.
We've come from a time where there might have been a dozen or 20 or 30 articles written each year across the country about LGBT issues, to where literally now there are hundreds of articles. One of the largest areas of growth has been in transgender legal issues. I think the issues faced by transgender people really start to implicate the way that our legal system looks at sex and gender in general. So I think scholars in and outside of the LGBT world are beginning to look at these issues more and more. The other thing that we're seeing is the active engagement of openly transgender law faculty and students in these issues.
We're seeing more trans law school applicants and more trans law students than ever before. And I think that we need to move the focus away from trans individuals and what they're like and what they look like and what they, everything about our lives, and towards what the institution can do to remove the barriers to participation.
I think we have an obligation to look around, much like we did with lesbian and gays and bisexuals, look around and say, look, how do we begin to address this issue?
We had a writing assignment that was centered on an employment discrimination claim by a transgender plaintiff. And this was the second year that they had given this assignment. And the year before, there had been no sensitivity training about any sort of trans issues, and there were a lot of really offensive things said in the classroom. And I heard these offensive things from people who had taken the class the year before. So we decided that we should do a lunch talk. In the beginning of the semester, make sure the teachers passed out information sheets on how to talk about trans issues and how to not be offensive. And people who had no connection to trans issues at all, people I've never met before, came up to me after that talk and said, I learned so much. I made those sheets. I organized the talk. I called the people. And I was proud to be able to do it. I was glad it was happening. But you have to be ready to see those things, to see that inequality, and take it on, because it will be there.
I'm hoping that more law schools will offer courses that include this in the curricula, and that they'll prioritize making sure students with trans identities can come to the schools, and they'll hire trans faculty. That would be amazing. These are some of the things I hope we'll see.
If you want to be successful in law school, it has to be your passion. And the only way that you can really be passionate about something is if you're honest about who you are and what you are, and you have confidence in who you are and what you want to be. And being transgendered is one part, but being a successful law student and being a successful lawyer is another part. And none of those will be truly successful as long as you're hiding a part of who you are.
I think for a long time in the legal community, trans people were invisible. It wasn't something people talked about. It wasn't something that was acceptable to talk about. And I think a growing number of people are starting to realize that gender impacts all of us, regardless of whether we're gay, straight, anything. The way that we dress, the way that we interact with people, what bathrooms we go to, how we want people to refer to us, that impacts everyone. And addressing issues of gender will make the law school experience better for everyone, not just trans people.
Yes, right, of course. I graduated from law school as a man and practiced as a man. And in the spring of 2007, I concluded that I was not a man but a woman, and that what I needed to do for myself was to acknowledge and accept that and to transition. I've been an attorney in the firm for roughly 25 years in a relatively high-powered law firm environment. My clients weren't uniformly very good about this. In fact, there were only a few that were very good about it. The message back was, we're just not comfortable with you now. But I am still here. Coming to grips with my gender identity was liberating. It brought me a peace in my life, a certain serenity that I didn't have before. So if you can get to the point where you are comfortable with yourself, doors will open and you will be accepted. Maybe not every door, but most.
Transition has been the greatest thing I ever did, the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I'm a graphic example of transitioning late in life, and I could actually say that of all the things that I learned, it's probably that I should have done this earlier. And I kept thinking, if I don't do that transition, I will completely betray everything I've ever believed about myself and about my life, and the whole thing would be a complete and total fraud. I threw off an identity which I was dying to throw off. I was dying to throw off that suit and that tie and everything else that made me feel like a complete liar. I was blown away by the love and the welcome embrace that I got. And that included the judges. I mean, really, the people that were most embracing in many ways were the prosecutors. The people that I beat up on a daily basis were, in many ways, the most affectionate in terms of their support and encouragement of the change. I had some really tough death penalty clients, murder clients, gang kids. Every single one of those people that I felt the most dubious about when I came in and told them, listen, I'm going to change my gender. I understand it. If you can't continue with me, I'll find you a good lawyer. Every single one of them said the same thing. Are you really going to do that? No problem. You know, I'll stick with you. Being Japanese American and growing up Japanese American in sort of post-war America was the kind of thing where you didn't really want to assert your Japaneseness very much. As a matter of fact, you sort of kept a low profile about that. And I got used to putting a lid on certain aspects of myself that I didn't feel would meet with very much universal approval. I don't think that anybody wants to be known as the transgender woman. We like to hope that we're more than that, or we're more dimensional than that. But if that's what happens in this particular instance, I think it's fine. I mean, curiosity is the normal condition when people come across something that they've never encountered before. Most of my friends have never even met a transgender person in their life. It is important for me to answer these questions so that they'll have some greater understanding of the next transgender person they come across, and in the greater goal to allow people to increase their expectations of diversity in the world. Being open, I would advocate that for everybody, frankly. I think that especially lawyers, we have to be ourselves to present our cases, to represent our clients, to make connections and relationships with people, including the juries and judges that we have to persuade. I think that the profession is changing. I think the world is changing for the better. And I'm a fortunate beneficiary of those changes. And hopefully I can help to take them even further, not just for transgender people, but for every marginalized and oppressed community that's been relegated to the sidelines.